Hello and welcome to Mr. Marshall Flipped. This is the second lesson on the circulatory system. So last lesson we talked about blood, what's in blood, why it needs to go around the body, all that sort of stuff. This lesson we're going to be talking about how it gets around the body. Now last lesson I mentioned that there are three main blood vessels. They're the arteries, the veins, and the capillaries. These three types of vessels are really important because they all have different roles. The arteries are taking blood away from the heart, veins are bringing it back to the heart, and capillaries are those little blood vessels in between that are spread all throughout the body, connecting with the cells in our body and getting the substances that need to go to our cells to our cells. So let's have a little look at them. Here's a picture of our three different types of blood vessels, and if you're looking straight up here, this one is the artery. It's got a really thick wall, it's really elastic, and it has to be nice and strong like this. And you notice it's got a bit of connective tissue around the outside, but then the muscle is really thick and nice and strong. It has to be strong because the amount of pressure that the blood gets forced around the heart is incredible. If it wasn't that strong, then these arteries could burst, tear, all sorts of nasty things. We want them nice and strong so that the blood can rush through and get where it needs to go. In the middle, way up here, we have our capillaries. Now our capillaries are those really fine blood vessels all over our body. If you say you get a cut on your hand and it starts to bleed, that stuff comes out of your capillaries. If it's coming out of an artery, it's major trouble. A vein is pretty big trouble, but not as bad as an artery. Capillaries, stick a band-aid on and it's fine. These guys have a wall that is literally one cell thick. The reason that that's the case is because we need to get substances in and out of those vessels. So if we have a look at this is called diffusion. Basically what that means is as the blood is going through the capillaries, because of the difference in pressure inside the blood vessel compared to the pressure outside, oxygen gets pulled from the capillary out into the cells. Remember we said before, oxygen is required for burning the fuel, burning the food, and in fact those dissolved food molecules also get diffused out into the cells, and then waste products like CO2 gets diffused back into the blood. And this is happening all over your body all the time. That's how we get everything that needs to go to the body cells, and everything that needs to be taken away. Back to our blood vessels, we've talked about two, arteries and capillaries. The last one is the veins. The veins are the vein to the heart. Okay, these are getting the blood back into the heart so it can do its loop again around the body. And you'll notice if you look at this one, the connective tissue is much thicker. The muscles are much smaller. And this is because our veins are trying to push back uphill, basically. Blood goes up to our head, out to our arms, and then down our body, and it needs to come back up. And because it's coming back up, it's got muscles on the outside of the veins which basically squeeze it and force the blood up. And then if you look over here, we've got what are called valves. These valves are a little bit like a trapdoor. The blood goes up and then it gets trapped at that level by the valve, and then the blood can be pushed up further as the vein gets squished again. So it's working its way up more slowly than it comes out of the heart, but we need that flexibility and that elasticity in the veins so that they can work that way, that they can be squeezed and pushed to get the blood back up. Next, we have the heart. Now the heart has four main areas. It's got the right atrium, the right ventricle, the left atrium, the left ventricle. Okay, and I did them in that order because the blood comes from the body back into the heart in the right atrium. Comes into the right atrium. Atrium, for those who don't know, is a little bit like the entryway into a big hotel or a big building. Okay, that first room that sort of everything else comes off of. Okay, so we go in the atrium and then it goes into the right ventricle. Now the right ventricle has a valve, again like our veins, to stop blood flowing back out of the heart the wrong way. After going in the right ventricle squeezes and pushes the blood out into the pulmonary arteries. The pulmonary arteries are arteries going to the lungs. Pulmonary is a word meaning lungs. The blood goes out to the lungs, collects oxygen, gets rid of carbon dioxide, comes back in the pulmonary veins, and this time instead of going the right side of the heart, it goes in the left side of the heart. It goes in the left atrium, goes through a valve into the left ventricle. The left ventricle squeezes and pushes it out through what's called the aorta, and the aorta is this massive artery, or series of arteries actually, that sends the blood to all the places it needs to go in the body. When blood is gone through the aorta, it's oxygen rich. It's absolutely full of oxygen, having just recently come from the lungs. By the time blood is coming back into the heart, into the right atrium, it doesn't have much oxygen in. So the heart is doing two jobs. One, it's sending off to the lungs to get oxygen and bringing it back, and then once it's back, sending it off to the rest of the body. The other thing is it is literally that pump that's pushing all of the blood around the body the entire time. Really, really important. Last thing I want to quickly mention is our heartbeat. So the heart is a muscle and it beats, basically each beat is one pump or one push of the blood around the body. And it has two parts, a bit like when you're listening in a movie or listening to someone's heartbeat. It's a da-dum, da-dum. Okay, that beat is two things happening. The first beat is when the valves between the atrium and the ventricle shut as the ventricles squeeze. Because remember, if the ventricle squeezes and there's no valve there, the blood's going to go the right way and the wrong way. The valve shuts, the blood has to go the other way, out of the artery, whether it's the pulmonary artery to the lungs or the aorta out to the body. The second beat is when the valve exiting the ventricles snaps shut, because after the ventricles have squeezed to push, they need to relax so that they can suck more blood in. But if they do that without that valve shutting, they'll start sucking all of that blood that they've just pushed out back into the heart, and we can't have that. So first beat is valve between atrium and ventricle. Second beat is between ventricle and the arteries. And that's what keeps our blood pumping around and making sure it doesn't go the wrong way. So today, we've looked at a couple of things. We've looked at the three types of blood vessels: arteries, veins, and capillaries. We've looked at how they compare, the different sizes. Remember, capillaries are those really, really important ones, getting everything to our cells. Arteries leave the heart and veins come back in. We looked at how oxygen and CO2 gets diffused out of the blood and into the blood. And we looked at what a heart looks like and the flow of blood through the heart. Thank you for watching. I look forward to next episode.